Welcome to Peace, Freedom, and Joy for Changemakers. I am your host, Michelle Vandehay, and today's 5 minute message is shift your perspective and shape your life. And this came from me going for a walk, as most of my messages do. And right now, here in Wisconsin, we are starting to see dandelions come up. And it's interesting because then I was watching something from an influencer, and they shared this like thing that grabs weeds out, especially dandelions, out of your yard really easily. Like I don't even know how to explain it. It's funny because I used to be someone who I like hated having dandelions in our yard, and it would just always bother me. And then as I've grown and evolved and learned new things, I realized that actually having dandelions in your yard is a really good thing. It helps with bees and just all sorts of different insects and pollinators for not only our flowers, but also our fruits and our vegetables that are growing as well. And that having dandelions is actually a good thing. This is the first year that me seeing dandelions in my yard actually made me really happy. It brought me joy. And I was like, oh my gosh, I love the yellow of the dandelions and all of this stuff. And it made me realize, like, wow, how my perspective has shifted. And because it shifted, now something that used to make me angry, it used to annoy me, I used to hate seeing dandelions, is now something that brings me joy and happiness and also helps me to feel like I'm making an impact on the world. And I want to say that I'm not saying that if you spray for dandelions or whatever that you're a bad person. Like, I'm not saying any of that. I'm going to bring this full circle. I just find it so interesting that over the last couple years that I'm like, okay, we're just going to embrace the dandelions. And I've embraced them, but I haven't really come to love them. And I've truly come to love them and know that they're there for a reason. And it's helping our planet and it's helping us as well and helping me. This change in perspective or shift in my perspective has shaped my life to now this is something that doesn't upset me. It used to upset me, and now it not only doesn't upset me, but it brings me joy and happiness. And so often in your work, your mission-driven work, where you're trying to create change in the world, so often we have this one perspective and it can make things feel frustrating and annoying and angry and all of these different types of things. But if we shift that perspective, it doesn't have to feel that way, and it can actually help bring some of that freedom, some of that peace, and some of that joy into your life. Because when I talk to most people doing this mission driven work, the things that they're looking for are peace, freedom, and joy. And when you can change your perspective and shift your perspective, that can help you to feel more peace, more freedom, and more joy, that you actually have the ability to do that without your changing, because the circumstances didn't change for me. We have dandelions. That still happens every single year. That didn't change. What changed was my perspective. And so I want to bring this maybe a little bit closer to home for you. I was just working with a team today, and something that got brought up was conflict. And when conflict happens, and oftentimes within conflict, and it was actually within the team, and it was a smaller team, and so when conflict happens between two people in a small team, that could potentially not be great because it's such a small team. And so it can affect everyone in the team. But what we talked about is that and it came from the book, The Five Dysfunctions of a Team. And one of the dysfunctions is fear of conflict. And so we talked about that, of like letting go of this fear of conflict and say, hey, conflict is still uncomfortable. We're not going to negate that. But conflict can also bring about awarenesses of things that we didn't know that you needed to work on. It can also bring about opportunities of areas of growth that maybe you need within yourself or within your team or within your organization. And so we talked about just shifting that perspective in and of itself is huge, of saying, okay, we understand that conflicts are going to happen. We can't get rid of conflicts. And instead of fearing them and saying, oh my gosh, this is bad if we don't agree or if a conflict comes up, and shifting that into this is actually something good because we're learning about ourselves. We're learning about a way we can make things maybe more efficient, how things can run more smoothly, how we can create more impact. We're learning things. Now, when conflict arises, instead of them trying to avoid it, or trying to run away from it. They're now saying, okay, the conflict is here and we're going to embrace it and actually say, okay, what can we learn from this? Because there's always something we can learn from this. And that is a huge perspective change. And because they've now changed their perspective of conflict being bad to now conflict not necessarily being good, but like conflict being okay, that it's something to learn, it takes that load off. It helps to ease things a little bit, right? It feels things have a little bit more ease. And when you feel at ease, there's a little bit more peace. There's a little more freedom in knowing, okay, if I want to bring something up and maybe it creates a conflict that it's not bad for me to do that. It's actually good. And it's creating a space for growth and transformation for us in our organization or us in our mission. And and that really shapes your life because now something that you despise, something that you didn't like, something that dragged your energy down, something that you were avoiding is now something that you may not necessarily be looking forward to, but it's something that doesn't bring you exhaustion. It actually brings you some like clarity of what you're doing and where you maybe need to shift in the future. I want you to start thinking about what is something in your life that maybe brings your energy down, maybe puts you more into alignment with your conditioned self as opposed to your authentic self. What is an area, especially within the work that you are doing, that has this negative energy around it that you want to shift your perspective so then it can have a lighter energy around it? Feel free to share this with me on my email. If you're listening to this on the podcast, come join the group Peace, Freedom, and Joy for Changemakers on Facebook. All of the information is in the show notes, or you're welcome to search it on Facebook. Feel free to reach out to me and let me know what is that one thing in your life right now that you're like, okay, I need to shift this perspective so then it can shape my life in a way that things feel a little bit more easeful. I can have a little bit more peace and a little bit more freedom around this as opposed to the harshness around it. Sending you all light and love, and always remember that you are worth it.